Welcome, sound seekers and vibra angels and frequent seers. Welcome to my video on sound therapy and vibrational healing, the diagnostic and therapeutic aspects of sound medicine, which is the title of my book. This is Wayne Perry. I'm the published author of Sound Medicine, the complete guide to healing with sound and the human voice. And I haven't done a video on YouTube for a while. We did post some a while back from other media, but I thought I would record something directly to YouTube today because we have two big events coming up in the next few days. And I want to get that information out and also give you some tips on real sound therapy because I've been doing this work for 28 years. I opened the first sound therapy center in Southern California to provide sound therapy products and services. And back 28 years ago, it was pretty tough. It was an uphill climb. People would laugh at, saying, yeah, your sound, your CDs, your workshops, your voice, your stuff is really going to heal my tumor or my arthritis or addictions or pain or whatever it might be. And in point of fact, it's not only can heal all those things, but it's probably the most effective holistic and alternative healing modality out there that I'm aware of. I studied this and I'm a certified sound therapist. And as I mentioned, I opened up the Sound Therapy Center in 1992. So 28 years ago, it was the first sound therapy center of its kind in Southern California, perhaps in all of California. I can't say for sure. I know there's a lot of people into sound healing, sound therapy in Northern California for some years, but I don't know if there were any centers or anything like that up that way 28 years ago. But, I know it's the first center of its kind here in Southern California, and we've been providing these products and services for all these years. And now the temperature and certainly changed with regard to responsiveness to not only sound therapy and vibrational healing, but to alternative and holistic health and wellness, in general. So it's, I guess you could say it's good news and bad news. The good news is there's more openness. More and more people are understanding that everything is energy, that we can't just trust what we see and hear anymore. Some people, that's all they rely on. But, we don't see ultraviolet light or X-rays. There's a lot that we don't see that certainly exists. And there's a lot that we don't hear that's above or below the human hearing bandwidth. We only hear from about 14 or 15 hertz or cycles per second up to about 20,000 hertz or cycles per second. Anything over 20,000 hertz is considered ultrasonic sound beyond our hearing range, which dogs can hear. We have dog whistles that we can't hear, but dogs can hear up to like 40,000 cycles per second, twice what we hear. But a lot of people aren't aware of things, particularly if they haven't read my book, Sound Medicine, that cats can hear higher frequencies than dogs can, up to 60,000 cycles per second. But they don't hear some of the lower frequencies that dogs hear and that we hear. So, life is different in all these levels. And then bats can hear up to 80,000 cycles per second. And then the creatures on the planet that have the most advanced hearing and potential for resonance is orcas and dolphins. And these creatures are very conscious, and they can hear up to over 150,000 cycles per second, maybe between 150 and 200,000 cycles per second. So it's pretty amazing. That's like at least 10 times the hearing of humans. And, people that swim with dolphins, might be having fun, but the dolphins are wondering why people aren't responding to their sonar and their communication that they're perpetually sending out. But anyway, to move on beyond just the human hearing bandwidth, we don't even have up to 20,000 cycles per second for the most part Once we hit the age of 18 to 20 years old, we lose some of the top end of our hearing bandwidth. And, some people jokingly blame it on listening to rock and roll as teenagers, but it really doesn't have anything to do with that. But we just kind of lose some of the high end. It's not a significant difference. It's not going to make any major difference in our hearing or anything, but it is a fact that we lose some of the high end as we grow older after 20 years old. But the point is that there are sounds above and below the human hearing range that we don't hear that are vital to our, our environment and our wellness. And when you study a little bit about sound therapy and sound healing, you don't have to be a scientist or a physicist to understand some basic principles like sound therapy and like brainwave entrainment. We won't have time today to get into the subject of brainwave entrainment, but probably within the next video or two that I do, I'm going to address that very important topic because brainwave entrainment is vital to healing. It's a universal principle, and it's not that complicated. But I'm going to get into explaining it at a future date. I want to keep things kind of concise. I did a video on Facebook yesterday that went almost an hour, and I put a lot of useful information in there, and happy to give you some useful information, but not everybody's going to have the time or the patience to, watch something for an hour or more. So I want to try to keep it, as brief, and at the same time give you some valuable and useful information that you can use to uplift the quality of your life and perhaps raise your frequency. But the best way to do that is to come to our events this week. If you're in the Los Angeles area, at least Thursday night, tomorrow night, we're doing a free sound healing open house that anybody is welcome to join. It's at 7 p.m. tomorrow, Thursday, the 20th of February. In case you're watching this in the future, and looking back, I should give you the dates. Right now I'm coming to you around 9:45 p.m. on Pacific Coast time on Wednesday, the 19th. So tomorrow, the 20th, Thursday, is the open house, 7 p.m., about 7 to 9 p.m., and there's still space available. It's also the last day to register for our weekend intensive sound healing training workshop that we still have 3 spaces available for that, and there's still a $75 discount until tomorrow. The full price of the weekend intensive training workshop with certification. You get a certification of completion in sound healing. It's a very in-depth, very comprehensive, experiential, hands-on workshop that, like I said, I've been doing for almost 28 years. And there's tons of testimonials from people that have done my workshop on my website, wayneperry.com, and all over Facebook as well. There's some material on YouTube and other social media sites, but there's probably the most comprehensive array of my work, 5-star reviews on my book, Sound Medicine, raving testimonials from people that have attended my workshop over the years. And it just gets better and better as I refine it and delete things that are not as high priority and add things that are a very high priority. And the workshop, keeps getting better and better. And it's very useful and simple to understand and use. So we go through chakra toning and balancing. We go through releasing vibrational toxicity that's stored in the body since childhood. The first 5 or 6 years of our life, we have we're like sponges, as psychologists tell us, therapists tell us. We are like little sponges, and we take on all this information in our environment, particularly from our parents, who are kind of like gods to us as infants and children. And after the age of 5 or 6, we start to armor ourselves and protect ourselves from dangerous energy and judgmental energy, blame and shame and that sort of thing. We start to protect ourselves somewhat, but during those very vulnerable years, we're storing this in our body and in our brainwave pattern. And I do diagnostic sound analysis, and I have yet to find somebody adult, I do children, I do adults, I do seniors, teenagers, all ages. And everybody's affected by our environment and our upbringing. And everyone is pretty much out of balance. Some people just a little bit out of balance, and some people quite a bit out of balance. But a diagnostic brain, voice, sound analysis reveals your whole vibrational pattern or vibratory signature, as it were. It's sort of like a sonic fingerprint. No two people are alike. You know, our bodies consist of sound. We live in a vibrational universe. There's lots of information in the new physics that talks about this. And, you know, that's why I say the good news is that people are becoming aware that everything is energy. Maybe not in the mainstream media so much, but more and more, you know, there's thousands and perhaps millions of people that certainly understand that everything is energy. But a lot of people still don't connect the dots and understand that there's no difference between the word energy, frequency, vibration, pulsation, sound. All these things are, you know, not exactly the same, but you could say they're different facets of the same diamond, so to speak. So they just give us a slightly different perspective and understanding of the wealth of sound. So, for instance, when you measure the pulsations or vibrations of sound in cycles per second, which is CPS, or hertz, which is the same thing, you see HZ, which stands for Hertz, and named after Wilhelm Hertz, scientist many years ago. And so whether you're looking at Hertz or CPS, it's the same thing, the cycles per second that something vibrates. And that tells us how frequent the sound vibrates. That's all frequency is. It just tells us how many times per second something vibrates. And it seems like a lot when something vibrates at like 5,000 or 10,000 cycles per second, but that's within the hearing range. Remember, we can hear up to approximately 2,000 cycles per second. So, you know, this is all well within the hearing range, in addition to all the sounds that are beyond our hearing range. So it's very useful to learn how to listen properly, how to listen to harmonics and healing regenerative sound, and how to use your personal signature frequency to not only raise your frequency, but raise your awareness and your consciousness. So one of the things I just love, so many things I'm passionate about, and why I love sound therapy is because you can work it on any level, on the physical level, and deal with physical aches and pains. It works on the emotional level with stress and emotional distress, trauma, and all kinds of emotional issues. It works on the psychological level for, you know, there are many of us that have mental imbalances, or, you know, not necessarily always major, but some, you know, minor psychological problems, whatever it is, physically, emotionally, psychologically, and even spiritually. Sound therapy can address all of those levels because, like I said before, we live in a vibrational universe and everything comes down to sound. The new physics has shown there's no such thing as solid matter. What we perceive as solid is not solid. Under high-powered microscopes, now we have the technology to see that everything is vibrating. Everything is in flux. Everything is energy vibrating. Everything is sound, frequency, and vibration. And so we should really, it would behoove us to get rid of the word solids or, you know, solidity from our vocabulary, because it's an illusion, and replace it with the word density. Density is a much more exacting and accurate description of not only sound, but of our bodies, the various levels of density. The lower the frequency, the more density. Like our bones and teeth are a low density sound, but our body consists of 100% sound. So the density of the bones and teeth are the lowest frequency sound within the body. And this is still sound, but you can't change the form and shape or density of a bone or a tooth without cracking it, breaking it, and changing the form. You know, it's pretty fixed because it's low frequency sound. And then when you look at the higher frequency sound in the body, like the skin, muscles, and tendons and organs and whatnot, and just lumping it all together, That's a little bit higher frequency sound, so it has a little more malleability. Massage therapist works out the stress in the body to release scar tissue from the muscles. Chiropractors help release pain and discomfort, not only from the muscles, but the tendons, ligaments, bones. So, there's a certain amount of malleability, at least with the muscles and with the skin. You can stretch it a bit, which you can't do with, bones or teeth, but it's still fairly fixed. It's a higher frequency, so it has a little bit more freedom to be, shifted a bit or manipulated. And then, you can go to the blood. Let's just stop there at the blood and just stop at 3 levels, because I don't want to make this whole thing about the sound of the body. But your blood enters the physical realm of the amorphous. So if I were to ask you, what's the shape or form of your blood? How do you answer that question? Because amorphous material takes on the form and shape of the container. So, the best answer one could give is that the form or shape of the blood is determined by your skin and your skeletal system. Similarly, you could imagine a pitcher of water in your fridge that you might have, and maybe you take the pitcher of water out of the fridge, pour yourself a glass. Well, the shape of the water is the shape and form of the pitcher, because that's what's containing it. And then when you pour it into the glass, now that water is the shape and form of the glass. So amorphous material or liquids take on the form of the container. So that's what's happening with the blood and fluids within our physical bodies, but it's still sound. But technically, your blood is the highest frequency physical sound in your body. So your body consists of 100% sound, but the blood is probably the most conscious or the highest frequency, because it has the least amount of density. You can put your hand through it without harming your hand. You can't put your hand through wood or metal or these kinds of things, without breaking it or disturbing its form. But you can put your hand through water. We wash our hands every day, several times a day. It doesn't hurt the water. It doesn't hurt our hands. So because it's amorphous. And so, but you're more than just a sack of chemicals physically. Within the physical body, we have an emotional body. Within the emotional body, we have an astral body. This is the spirits and ghosts that people talk about, sometimes seeing astral forms or ghosts. This is kind of a real thing. We don't easily see it, but years ago we used to do exercises in the dark, and you can amplify the etheric body, the astral body, and literally can feel it or see it. But that's just not going to necessarily take you anywhere. It's better from a sound perspective to understand sound therapy and the new physics, and understand the whole principle of life and how it works. And like I said, within your body is your emotional body, your astral body, the mental and causal body. The causal body is where form takes place in the causal universe. Is beyond the physical universe. There's an astral universe, many levels of the astral universe, and then the causal universe, many levels of that before you get to the spiritual universe. And people that talk about having spiritual experiences aren't really having spiritual experiences. They don't know what to call them, but they're usually astral experiences. And some really evolved souls, they might be having some causal experiences. But we don't have true spiritual experiences until we're really cleansed. Our minds and emotions are literally, dirty. We have negative thoughts of oppression and hatred and lust and greed and anger and all these things that, kind of pollute the mind. So, God doesn't lift us up while we're dirty. It's our responsibility while we're in this dimension to clean up our act. And I don't know a better way to clean up our act than through sound therapy. That's why I'm passionate about it. And I've been doing it for 28 years and helping people transform their lives and literally transcend their lives. If you don't want to be, stuck here in this dimension, there's a way, to get out of it. I like to say the way out is in, through meditation and sound work here at the third eye. It's referred to in Sanskrit in the East as Tisratil. There's different forms of sound yoga and nam yoga and various forms of yoga and interdimensional work, primarily in the East, because in this, these current generations we're in, spirituality and that kind of talk or practice is a little more popular and evident in the East and Asia. But that's just in this place and time and space. We're more known for our technology in the United States, and different countries and cultures are known for different things. Hundreds and thousands of years ago was different. There were other places on the earth that were more spiritually developed, in the times of ancient Egypt and Atlantis before that, and Lemuria. If you believe in that sort of thing, some people are skeptical about it, but do you some research, explore it, see what you can find. But that's the thing, you can access all these things most easily through sound, and it's not only the most effective healing modality. I mean, I kind of went off into the metaphysics of it because that interests me, and I'm very interested in the metaphysics of sound. But to keep it, more basic, for those of you that are not schooled in the metaphysics of sound, we can, just talk about the 3 types of sound here. I categorize as the 3 R's, the 3 types of sound. And that's one of the many principles and related to exercises that we do in the sound healing workshop that we have coming up this weekend. So I want to remind you through this broadcast, because this is the last broadcast I'll be doing here, not only in Los Angeles, but wherever this goes to nationwide and, abroad. Most of the people that come to my workshop in Los Angeles actually come from out of state, because I'm the only one who does what I'm doing, that does both diagnostic and therapeutic sound therapy. And my focus is on the human voice. I don't use, bells and gongs and tuning forks and shakers and didgeridoos and all that stuff, although I do have them. I used to use them, and I occasionally do use them sometime. I shouldn't say I never use them, but I try to point out and express to people the importance of the human voice, because there's a lot of fear around the human voice and around the 5th chakra. You might remember the research they did some years ago about the #1 fear in this country, and people were in dialogue and conflict about thinking, is it fear of death or fear of pain? It's like half the crowd was believing it was fear of death, and the other half thought it was fear of pain. And then when the results of the survey came out, with thousands of people being, profiled and researched, the #1 fear in this country was fear of public speaking. It surpassed pain and death, and it blew a lot of people's minds. But it doesn't surprise me, because I know, as a professional singer for years before I got into sound therapy, even as a singer, you get stage fright in the early years until you develop your confidence. There's a lot of fear generated by the media, by our families and parents and friends and all sorts of, people, famous people we get compared to. And so we have a lot of fear on the voice. I remember the first time I heard my voice on an answering machine back in Chicago when I grew up, and oh my God, that's my voice, and I wanted to remain silent. We're always so self-conscious about our voices. Most people don't particularly like their voices, but you can change and develop your voice. I also host the Holistic Voice Institute of West Hollywood, California. I've got the Holistic Voice Institute, the Sound Therapy Center of Los Angeles, and the Sound Healers training workshops for training people in sound healing and sound therapy. But anyway, getting back to the good news and bad news, before we get into 3 types of sound, I was saying the good news is people are becoming more and more familiar with the fact that everything is energy, and slowly but surely they're linking the dots that it's the same thing as frequency and vibration and pulsation, sound, energy. All these things are connected, and the aware ones are learning that every person has their own unique signature frequency pattern that's unique to them. And by discovering that, doing a diagnostic sound analysis, you free yourself from so many old programs and really empower yourself to work with your specific frequency. And it becomes very easy to raise your frequency and release blocked energy and just totally transform your life. But that's some of the good news, that people are more, years ago, 28 years ago, the only clients I had were some seniors that were fed up with allopathic medicine and taking drugs, and were looking for some alternatives, and that was it. But nowadays, I mean, I have teenage clients, I have college students, I have seniors, I have adults, parents, children, every gender, culture. I've been traveling internationally for the last several years. I've, did a world tour. I did a concert and sound healing concert and workshop tour of Bulgaria a couple years ago. I did the same in England and Italy a few years ago. More recently, I've been going to Taiwan and Hong Kong and Shanghai. I had to postpone my October trip to Hong Kong because of the kind of rebellions over there, and now the recent coronavirus. But there's a lot of revolting against the communist government. People don't realize how good we have it in this country, even though we might have a kind of a out of balance the maniac in the White House here. It's a lot better than the dictators that they have in some of these third world countries and the communist countries like Russia and China. And the people are very much oppressed, and the people are quite lovely. I so enjoy meeting the people in China and Taiwan. They're very open-minded and very open-hearted, and they're going to, eventually surpass Americans at the sound healing if the Americans don't wake up and take this opportunity to learn about sound healing and real sound therapy. Because the bad news that I was referring to, I said there's good news and bad news. Although people are more open and understanding more that everything is energy, at the same time, at least in California, I don't know how it is around the rest of the country. I used to do workshops in every major city in the United States, but lately I've been traveling more internationally and out of Los Angeles. But here in California, there's this sound bath fad that's been popular for the last year or two, and everybody's excited. They don't know what to do. They don't fully understand how sound therapy and sound healing works. So it's easy to go to a sound bath, and they think that that's going to create healing for them. But it's sort of like a shortcut, I guess you could say, for lazy people. It's like having a drink or smoking a joint. It gives you a little temporary, relaxation or something from the chaotic lifestyle and stressful society that we live in. And it's, of course, always good to relax. But, what the sound bath facilitators aren't aware of, and they're generally, I don't judge anybody, they're good people. I have some friends that do sound baths and facilitate them, and they're well-intentioned people and good people, but unfortunately they're not certified sound therapists, and they don't understand that you can give people a sound at a sound bath, and if it's a sound that an individual has an excess of in their brainwave pattern, it can exacerbate any chronic issues, any physical or emotional issues that they're presently dealing with, which is not good. I can't tell you how many people I've had to realign and rewire with sound that have gone to a sound bath. So that's what I mean by, the bad news. That's one of the examples of the bad news, along with people that are calling themselves sound healers that are not. A lot of people do a workshop or read a book or study something, Google something online, and they learn a little bit about sound healing, and then they start calling themselves sound healers. You got massage therapists calling themselves sound healers, and Reiki masters, and different kinds of healers, and that are calling themselves sound healers. Now, this is no judgment of Reiki masters. I've trained hundreds and hundreds of Reiki masters over the years because they get it. They get, subtle energy and how it works. So they're prime candidates to be, sound healers and sound therapists because they're working with subtle energy. All I'm saying is, unless you're trained in sound therapy and understand the principles, especially the process of diagnostic sound analysis, you're going to put yourself in a, a possibly dangerous situation. Because like I said, in sound baths, particularly if they're using electronics, if they're using synthesizers or electronic instruments, it's extremely dangerous. And it doesn't matter if they're using the new tuning of 432. I mean, I support the new tuning that there's a lot of controversy about 432, and I always give people the choice. I work with people and I tell them, you want to work with the 432 frequency or the 440 frequency, and I always give them the option. I tend to favor the 432 frequency, but it really, when it gets right down to it, there's not enough empirical evidence to show that there's much of a difference between various tunings. There's the 528 frequency. There's other frequencies coming out, that people swear by, the frequencies of the earth. And, it gets so complicated and intellectual. And I've learned over the years, if it gets too intellectual or complicated, it's usually BS. I'll avoid the cursing terms. I try to use the voice in the highest possible form without swearing and cursing, but you get the idea of what I'm talking about. If it's too intellectual and in the head, and then it's not coming from the heart, and it's generally not true or valid if it's too complicated. The highest, purest principles and the most spiritual energy is very simple and straightforward, and not that complicated. And that's one of the other many things that I love about sound therapy. I can break it down in so many levels, like regarding brainwave entrainment, regarding toning, regarding harmonics, regarding so many things that we'll talk about in the future with upcoming videos. But right now I want to just tighten this up a little bit and stay on track here and talk about the 3 types of sound, because like I said, you can experiment with different things. You could try a sound bath if you've never been to one to have the experience. But I would avoid it. I don't attend them. It's too risky to get your frequencies thrown out of balance. And then you can come to me or another certified sound therapist to get realigned and in balance. But in any event, these types of sounds fall under the first category of sound. I call them the 3 R's, and the first R is relaxing sound. And we need relaxing sound with this fast-paced world we live in. We're all busy doing a lot of things, and we need to kind of chill out and relax sometimes. So relaxing sounds are very useful and helpful, but don't confuse them with healing sounds. Relaxing sounds are just that. The purpose of them is to calm and soothe the body. So keep that in mind. So if you think you've had a healing, because healing can manifest anytime. I tell my clients, and those that know me and have worked with me for years know that sometimes the healing occurs in their car on their way to see me. Sometimes it happens while they're here when I'm working on them. Sometimes it happens after they leave my office on the way home or at home. You can't lock it into a time and space framework. Healing happens when it happens, and it doesn't happen from external forces. It happens from within. As I mentioned earlier, your body is a tremendous healing entity and mechanism, and it can heal itself of all sorts of things if we give it a sound environment. The problem is we don't always give it a sound environment. We eat unhealthy foods a lot of times. We drink unhealthy water. We think unhealthy thoughts, have unhealthy feelings. So that's why it's important to discipline our thoughts and emotions. It's good to get on a high frequency diet, eating natural, organic fruits, nuts, vegetables, seeds, grains. These are the highest frequency of food. And that's why everybody that I do a diagnostic analysis of is out of balance. Some people are close to being in balance. They're not as out of balance as others because they lead a healthier lifestyle and maybe have better discipline over their thoughts and emotions. But nevertheless, there still is things we can do to greatly improve our frequency and raise our frequency. And it all begins with a diagnostic sound analysis, because that's the only way I know of really discovering what's going on in your brain and your body. And the brain is like the home office. That's where your personal frequency pattern is stored. So if it's in your brain, it's in turn in your voice. And if it's missing or dormant in your brain, it will be missing or dormant in your voice. So try to keep these things in mind. And also the underlining principle of sound therapy that I didn't mention earlier when I was talking about form and density, but you might want to write this down if you can't remember it. And that's that the form and density, notice I'm not saying solidity because that's an illusion. There's no such thing as solid matter or solidity. So we use the word density. Train your mind to substitute the word density for solidity. So anyway, the principle goes like this. The form and density of all matter is determined by its frequency. So everything has a frequency. Every animal, every plant, every person, I mean, everything has a frequency. Even, a piece of fruit, whatever it is, can be measured and the frequency determined. When I was in training as a sound therapist, we learned the frequencies of the periodic table, that every item and everything in the periodic table has its own, frequency. So it gets very deep and complex and complicated. And, that's, getting deeply into the mind. And like I said, we need to go as deep as we need to understand and satisfy the mind. But if we get too caught up in the mind, you can spend your whole life bouncing around, asking questions and trying to understand stuff and never get to the heart of the matter, which is where the real truth lies. Satisfy the intellect as best you can, but remember the goal is to learn enough to put it on the shelf and trust your heart, and intuition, because that's where the real truth and knowledge lies. And, studying, information and knowledge is helpful to a certain point to explain things and give us guidelines and ways to learn and to study and enhance our lives, improve the quality of our lives, and use the best methodology. But sooner or later, it's going to lead you to sound. Like Edgar Cayce said, I believe around 1952, I remember reading in college one of his books where he said, sound will be the medicine of the future. And I've been saying for, 20 years or more that the future is now. And so we can all use sound. As I said earlier, we don't have to be scientists or physicists. Get a diagnostic sound analysis, reveal your personal frequency, and start working with it. It's not only one of the easiest methodologies to work with, but it's probably the least expensive. A diagnostic sound analysis, well, there's not that many people doing it. And I know there's some doctors and a few people out there that are doing it and charging upwards of $300. I only charge like $185. I mean, I just raised my price from $175 to $185 for like the first time in like 12 or 13 years. So, I mean, it's not expensive. You don't have to invest in sound machines like I did 28 years ago, invest over $4,000 in sound machines that did work, but they're dangerous. Again, I didn't want to be responsible for harming anybody. So my sound machine went into storage. And many, many years ago, I only used it the first year or so of my practice. And then I realized the ultimate healing instrument, the human voice, sitting right under our noses. And I did a lot of research, and some of that research I hand out during my workshop. And it's been proven scientifically that only the human voice is alive. And that's why it's the ultimate healing instrument. And any other instruments are dead, are not alive. The human voice is alive. It's connected not only to your body, but to your soul. So it's by far the most powerful healing instrument there is. And this was out in research that was done that I studied, around 25 years ago, and saw the research and was privy to it, and put together a paper. Some of it's in my book, Sound Medicine, and then I have a handout that I give people, the order of effectiveness of different sounds, and the maximum effectiveness, and then less effectiveness, less. And anyway, you're welcome to call me or contact me anytime. I try to remain accessible. Unlike other people, I have my phone number and my email on my website. So you can always reach me by email or phone. my website. If I'm with a client or teaching or out of town or something, I always return phone calls and emails as best as I can. So I try to keep accessible. I did take my address off the website because they had too many people coming over without an appointment, and it gets distracting and problematic. So you'll have to talk to me directly, if you want the address to work with me privately or to come to the workshop this weekend. So once again, the Sound Healing Open House is tomorrow night, Thursday, February 20th at 7 p.m. in West Hollywood. Contact me at the phone number or email on my website, wayneperry.com, and I'll RSVP you until we're filled up. We still have a few spaces open, both for tomorrow night and for the workshop this weekend. And the weekend workshop is normally $395, and it's a certified workshop. You get a certificate of completion in sound healing. And that's a very deep and intense workshop from 10:30 a.m. till 7 p.m., both Saturday and Sunday, February 22nd and 23rd. And you can register for that on my website. You can go to the events page and scroll down to the bottom. You'll see a little arrow with a drop-down menu. And there's a $75 discount. And instead of $395, you'll only pay $320 if you register tonight or tomorrow. For the weekend intensive. We still have some space, 3 spaces, I think, left open. So I wanted to get that little plug in. So if you have to leave this video or you're just bebopping through, YouTube or something and notice this, that you know what's going on. If you have access to get to Los Angeles, if you're in the area or have a means of getting here, we're in the West Hollywood area, right next to Beverly Hills, in the heart of the kind of entertainment area. But anyway, that's going on Thursday and this weekend. But getting back to the 3 types of sounds. So as I was saying, relaxing sounds, which are helpful, they kind of set the stage for healing sounds, but in and of itself, it's not healing. They're relaxing sounds to calm and soothe the body. And as I briefly mentioned earlier, and I think bears repeating, if you do have a healing experience and you think it comes from the relaxing sounds, check yourself, because it doesn't come from relaxing sounds or sound baths. It comes from you. You were in an environment, you were ready to pop. And so give your body the credit, give yourself the credit for the healing, that you had a strong and clear intention to heal, and your body just happened to shift and establish or create that healing response at that particular time. And it might be during or after some relaxing sound, but it had very little to do with the relaxing sounds. They just kind of set the stage and prepare us for healing. So that's the first R, or first type of sound, to help us kind of categorize and wrap our mind more easily around the concept of sound, so that we can in turn understand sound therapy and sound healing properly. So the second R, or type of sound, is release sounds. Now these are quite different from relaxing sounds. For relaxing sounds, the purpose is to calm and soothe the body. The purpose of release sounds is to cleanse the body. Okay, so when we cleanse the body, it's a different process, just like we, cleanse the body in a shower or bath that we take to cleanse the physical body. We need to cleanse the emotional body and the psychological body and these inner bodies. And so that's where sound comes in, where vocal toning is a great, great tool to use to release pain and negative emotions and all sorts of things: stress, worry, fear, anxiety, guilt, remorse, emotional pain. All these kinds of things can be easily released with the exercises in my book, Sound Medicine. You can just simply release. In fact, right now, I could give you a simple tip: just use vowel sounds. I call it VVB, vowels, volume, and breath. Once you do a diagnostic sound analysis, then you can add the most powerful component, which is the pitch, the particular pitch or sound frequency that's going on in your brainwave patterns. You know what to do, what the tone to use to release blocked energy, and what tones to tone to strengthen and retain energy in your body, and entrain healing frequencies to your brainwave pattern. And so You can learn that from my book Sound Medicine or from the workshops that I teach, and also there's also videos and webinars on my website that I mentioned, wayneperry.com. In addition to the events link that has my calendar, and you would register for the workshop on the events page of wayneperry.com. You can go to the products page of wayneperry.com, the website, to purchase the book Sound Medicine, to purchase CDs or downloads. Nowadays, people don't buy the CDs as much as they used to, in fact, very rarely, but the downloads are available of all the sound therapy material, instructional material, sound therapy music, and the powerful sound therapy tones for brainwave entrainment that aren't talking or music. They're just vocal harmonic tones for entraining the brainwave patterns with healing sound. And we'll talk more about that later. Like I said, I can't elaborate on all these areas in this one little video I'm trying to lay out for you. So suffice it to say that, as I mentioned earlier, there's 3 types of sound. I call the 3 R's. First, we talked about relaxing sound to calm and soothe the body. Release sounds are to cleanse the body. And some examples of release sounds, because we're actually doing it every day. It's a part of toning, because the definition of vocal toning is simply moving energy with the human voice. That's all, using primarily vowel sounds, but not limited to vowel sounds. That's all toning is. Instead of singing or chanting or speaking, you're using the voice for a different purpose, to move energy. And so as we use, the vowel sounds are your most powerful ammunition, because the vowel sounds move the most energy. They can create the most volume, and they open up and move the energy more easily. So if you have a pain, let's say you have a pain in your stomach, if you just go, ow, it's not going to release, it's not going to help much. Blase doesn't work. It's when you put sound into it and volume into it that you get a little relief. So when we go, ow, the expulsive breath, the expulsive sound, and that vowel sound, even in the sound ow, you notice there's vowels in there. It's like a diphthong. There's ah, o, and oo, ow. So there's 3 vowels kind of crammed together. And that's why I call it VVB, vowels, volume, and breath. That's what VVB stands for. So you can do that right now by just putting some volume into your vowel sounds and support it with some, deep breath, diaphragmatic breathing. If you know how to breathe properly and diaphragmatically, you can just go, ow, with the vowels. And I'll just demonstrate it. You can do this anytime you're having some stress or you're in traffic driving. I use it all the time when I'm stuck in LA traffic. But you can just go, A, E, ah, O, oo, A, E, ah, O, oo, A, E, ah, O, oo. It's very simple, very easy. Anybody can do that. But if you do it regularly, anytime you feel a little overwhelmed or a little stressed, whether driving or at home or at work or whatever, if you have a little privacy where you're not going to annoy anybody or think somebody's going to think you're going crazy or something, just find a place of privacy and do your sounds. I know people that do it in their closet so they don't disturb their family or the neighbors. People do it outside in the woods or by the beach. It doesn't have to be that loud, but if you're doing release work, that's the only time that you need to put some volume into it. Because if you're doing overtoning and creating regenerative healing sound and harmonics, you can't be too loud or you'll blow out those harmonics. But you can't be too soft or you don't have enough vibration to move the energy. So it's sort of in the middle ground somewhere. But release sound is the only sound that you need to put some volume into it. But it's like the volume that you'd call a friend from across a crowded room or across the street, and you say, Carol, John, something like that. You raise your voice so that they can hear you. That's the only volume that's necessary. It's not primal scream therapy, so you don't have to strain your voice or your vocal cords by being too loud. It's not about screaming. It's just about raising the volume sufficiently to move the energy. That's all it's about. So anyway, so that's the second sound, the release sounds. And some examples of that, by the way, are moaning and groaning, and sighing, and the biggies are laughing and crying. You know how great it feels after we have a good laugh, and even after a good cry. The cry might be a sad cry, it could be a happy cry, but even after a sad cry that might be kind of painful, the broken heart or the loss of a loved one or some kind of sad situation that causes us to cry, we still feel good afterwards. You know that there's a release that takes place, and you can't help but feel better after that sound release of crying. And of course, it always feels great to have a good laugh. We always feel good after laughing. So those are the two biggies, laughing and crying, but they're not the only release sounds. Like I said, just raising our voice when we get, emotional, and that's not only releasing, but it just gives you an indication of how sound is connected to our emotions and how we can raise our volume or lower our volume according to our intention and what we're trying to accomplish. So in any event, release sounds are using the vowels. Sometimes in my lectures and workshops, I'll ask somebody for an example of a release sound or whatever, and if we're doing ow and a common release sound. When I was in Japan, I didn't realize I bumped into somebody and they went itai, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't speak Japanese, and my interpreter that was there said they're just expressing pain. When they're in pain in Japanese, they say itai. So see, I learned something. I try to learn something new every day. And so you'll notice there's vowels, even though there's a consonant in the middle of the T, you have itai is a Japanese expression of releasing pain. So you'll always find these principles are consistent: vowels, volume, and breath. And then once you get a diagnostic sound analysis, you can go deeper into releasing not only pain, but addictions, tumors, all sorts of problems that go deeper by learning exactly where you're strong and where you're weak, and what pitches or downloads you can use to tone with and release with or entrain with. So the sound that goes in is like entrainment. That's the healing sound that goes in that you can listen to on a download or a recording for just a few minutes every day. And it's the repetition that creates the entrainment that helps your body to heal itself and create the healing. And that's the sound that goes in. And then the sound that goes out is your toning, and that releases the backups, the block sound that happens when your body is trying to heal itself and correct itself, and it doesn't know why it's not being effective, because it's being in a non-sound environment, in maybe unhealthy air or liquids or food or thoughts or emotions or whatever it is that's creating blockages and junk that needs to be released from the body. You can do that with toning and the VVB, vowels, volume, and breath. So that's, sound therapy in a nutshell. Outside of the diagnostic sound analysis, the sound that goes in is the healing sound and harmonics in the pitches that your analysis shows that you need. And you listen to those for a few minutes every day, and the repetition will eventually put those frequencies back in your brainwave patterns so your body can correct itself and heal itself. And then the other sound that goes out is your toning. That's the sound you eliminate and to release any blockages. And that you don't particularly have to do every day. I mean, people that love it, like me and some of my friends, that are kind of fanatical about it, we'd love to do it every day, but you don't have to feel overwhelmed with stuff to do. We're all busy people. But if you tone at least twice a week, if you use your voice to tone and do some release work twice a week or more, if you feel so inclined, that's usually sufficient. And then, but daily you should, kind of do the entrainment and the listening. So it's comparable to food. I like to you draw analogies to help people's understanding of some of these principles. You can eat the healthiest food in the world, high frequency food, organic fruits, nuts, vegetables, grains, seeds, and this, really good, healthy food. But guess what? If you don't eliminate that food, you're going to die. So what goes out is equally as important as what goes into the body. So similarly, you can have great digestion and elimination and do colonics or whatever to have good elimination. But if you don't eat, you're going to die. So, it's graphic, but it's pretty simple. We have to eat, we have to eliminate. That's simple. And it's the same thing with sound. You have to know how to listen to sound and listen to healthy sound that matches with your sound analysis is the best way to go, and listen to some of that for a few minutes every day. And then when you have the time, maybe twice a week or so, do some release work, release sounds. And I'll go over this in more detail in future videos, but I just want to go over the general principles right now today, and again alert you about our 2 events this week. The LA Sound Healing Open House tomorrow. If you're anywhere near Los Angeles and get here by 7 p.m. tomorrow night, you can participate in this free event from 7 to 9 p.m. tomorrow. Just email me or phone me, and I'll give you the directions and give you an RSVP. And then, if not for tomorrow, for the weekend, we've got people coming from out of state, from Seattle, from Phoenix, and Chicago, from different places around the United States, to do this very intense weekend, intensive sound healing workshop for 2 days. And there's still 3 spaces open. If you're available and you're interested and you're a spontaneous person like I am and some of my friends, you can dive in, go to my website, go to the events page, scroll down, and you can register for the workshop with a charge card right online and get the $75 discount if you do it tonight or tomorrow before it closes out. The discount closes out, or the workshop sells out, whatever happens first. But anyway, that's the information about the upcoming events. To finish up now about the 3rd sound, I was telling you that the release sounds are to calm and soothe the body, and they're very different from relaxing sounds, which calm and soothe the body. Relaxing sounds are generally lower volume, little or no rhythm. Might be music, or it could be something like birds chirping or ocean waves, whatever's relaxing to you. That's what's important. It's subjective. What you find relaxing is what you should use. And but don't confuse it with healing sounds. Then same thing with release sounds. You want to clean some of that junk out, do some toning with vowels, volume, and breath, and cleanse the body physically, emotionally, vibrationally, and psychologically with toning. And particularly if you do a sound analysis and know exactly which tones and vowels and pitches to release to really clear up your energy. It's not difficult at all. It's just important to get a sound analysis so you can be specific. And so that brings us to the 3rd type of sound, the 3rd R, which is the truly healing sound, and that's regenerative sound. Like I said, if you have a healing during relaxing sound or releasing sound, give yourself the credit. You just kind of were ready to pop at a time when maybe relaxing sounds were going on or releasing sounds. When I say going on, I mean listening to or making them. It could be sound out or sound in. So it can be releasing or relaxing. Like, for instance, if you go to the gym to work out, you don't hear relaxing sounds, Yanni or Kitaro or solo piano or something like that. You hear something thump, thump, thump. Another one, that's the dust, something, some rock song or dance song is what you'll hear in gyms, when you go to work out, because that encourages the release of endorphins and energy, and so that you can, move through that energy. But if you don't know what you're doing, it's hard to release sufficiently. I gave you a little trick to start off with. Just use the vowels and go A, E, Ah, O, U with a little volume and use the vowel sounds. Eliminate those diphthongs of I and U. Those are double vowels. Keep them pure with U instead of U, and Ah instead of I. A, E, Ah, O, U. Those are the simple toning vowels or sacred vowels. And the toning vowels I recommend to use for release work. But anyway, that's your releasing. Regenerative sound there's 2 aspects I'm going to cover. I think about 5 aspects in my book, Sound Medicine, but the 2 most important is understanding to apply sound to your signature frequency pattern. That's regenerative sound. When we discover through a diagnostic sound analysis where you're weak and deficient in your normal frequencies, then we can support that and support you by having you tone those sounds or listen to the sounds, depending on if you're in training or releasing. But it's important to understand regenerative sound. And those are, first of all, sounds that are weak that we're applying to your brain and to your consciousness and to your body because they're deficient in your brainwave pattern, and they were identified during your sound analysis. So that's the first form of regenerative sound, is sounds that are depleted, weak, or dormant in your brainwave pattern. And we've discovered them in the sound analysis and then giving them to you to listen to. And so that's a simple process, but that's just half the process. But it's the beautiful part of the process because you don't have to interrupt what you're doing. We're all busy people. Nobody wants to be given 30 minutes or an hour of homework to do every day when they're busy. You know, nobody's going to do it. They'll just procrastinate forever. But the beauty of the entrainment and listening to those sounds is you can do it while you're doing other things. You can listen to your healing regenerative sound while you're working out, while you're on the computer, while you're driving in your car. You know, if you've got little earbuds or earphones, headphones, or just through speakers, through a boombox, or even through your phone and some earbuds or whatever. It's very, convenient and easy to do, and it doesn't take up any time. You can listen while you're having breakfast or getting dressed or driving, like I said. So that's another beauty of sound therapy, is the inbound sound for healing. You don't have to worry about taking up any of your valuable time. You can do it while you're doing other things. Now, the second half of sound therapy, I have to admit, it's going to take some time, but you don't have to do it every day, and you don't have to do it for long periods of time. If you can do 15 or 20 minutes of toning twice a week, it's usually sufficient to release blocked energy and unhealthy energy that you may be carrying around with you, because most people are carrying that stuff around with them most of their lives if they don't learn how to release it with vocal toning. So keep that in mind, that if you can set aside 15 or 20 minutes, doesn't matter if it's in the evening or the morning or on the weekend or weekdays or whatever, that's up to you, whatever's convenient for you to do the release sound. Well, not the release sound. You might need to find some time to do that, but as well as some relaxing sound. But I'm talking about the Rolls Royce of sound, so to speak, is the regenerative sound. That's the truly healing sound, because your relaxing sound and your release sound aren't specifically healing, although they lead to healing and they set the environment for healing and kind of prepare you for the regenerative sounds. In and of themselves, they just allow the body to heal itself when your body's ready. But the regenerative sound of harmonics and overtones is the second part of the regenerative sound. I said there are two parts. The first is applying the specific sounds that you need, that your diagnostic sound analysis indicates are needed, that are weak. And so you apply those sounds to your body and brain and, listen to those. That's the sound that comes in. But then the type of sound is not electronic sound. It's not sound from a musical instrument. The most effective sound, as I mentioned earlier, that's been researched, is clearly there isn't anything that comes close to the harmonics and overtones within the human voice. Within the vowel sounds in the voice, and between the vowel sounds, they're both within the vowels and between the vowels are the harmonics and overtones. And that's the true, pure regenerative sound that you can use, and that's what we teach in in the workshops that I teach. I mean, I teach it privately to people that aren't able to attend my scheduled workshops. You get the most bang from your buck from all the exercises and training you learn from the workshop, but I also do it by private session appointments. So those are the two aspects of regenerative sound. The harmonics and overtones are a type of vocally produced sound that has the most effectiveness according to research, and applying the sounds that are specifically needed by you as an individual as part of your specific signature frequency. So it's that simple. Those are the two forms of regenerative sound. You can read up more about it in my book, Sound Medicine, some of the other aspects of regenerative sound, but those are the two most important parts. Now, I sense that you might not, if you're paying attention at least, you might not be clear on what vocal overtones and harmonics are. And I just realized that with the video I did yesterday, I did a brief demonstration of it. So we're already over an hour now. I didn't want to go, wasn't planning on going this long, but I think it behooves me to at least give you a brief demonstration of it before I say goodbye and end this video, so that you at least know what I'm talking about if you're not familiar with harmonics and overtones. You can create harmonics and overtones with a musical instrument, with a with a piano and with a any instrument, a guitar. Will create harmonics and overtones, but the voice is the most powerful. Like I said earlier, it's the only live instrument. So it's the ultimate healing instrument because it's alive. It's connected to our bodies, connected to the soul. There's nothing that has the regenerative power of the human voice. I mean, I have bowls and didgeridoo, 4 didgeridoos and forks and all sorts of toys and shakers and things. And they're fun and they have their place and their purpose with certain aspects of healing. They can be useful, but they can't even come close to the power of the human voice. You don't need any external instruments. You are the instrument. Trust in that, believe in that. Just learn the principles and steps and exercise to learn it. You can learn it from my book, Sound Medicine. You can learn it from my recordings and CDs and downloads. There's a 6-hour recording that comes in 4 CDs or extended downloads called The Ultimate Healing, and no, it's called The Secrets to Healing with Sound and Toning is the title of that 4 recording set, The Secrets to Healing with Sound and Toning. So if you're more auditory, you can learn it from the recordings, instructional recordings on my website. If you're a reader, you get a lot of useful information and 48 exercises in the book Sound Medicine. You can get it from the book. And then, of course, my favorite thing to do is my weekend intensive workshop. It's a very experiential, hands-on workshop where I get to witness lives being changed in the moment and people's frequencies getting raised and their consciousness being expanded. And it's a wonderful experience. You can read all the testimonials on the testimonial page on my website with people that have done my workshop. And if you're active on Facebook, you can also see tons of testimonials on Facebook, on my Wayne Perry page, on the Sound Therapy Center of Los Angeles page, the Sound Healers Training Workshop page. So anyway, it's not hard to find me if you look around. But anyway, I just want to do a brief demonstration of regenerative sound because toning is using the voice to move energy. And you can use the sound, you can send it through your mouth, you can send it through your nose. It's most effective through the mouth because you don't have the filters of the nose and the nostrils and the sinuses, so it's a louder, purer sound. But you can also do it through the nose. I wouldn't, limit yourself. So you want to create a fundamental note, and then you can create a second note on top of it. It could be an octave or a harmony to that fundamental note. Now, people that know music and the Overtones series understand the overtones and harmonics are basically the same thing. And you can create them with an instrument, a guitar, or a piano, and the notes vibrate, the different strings vibrate in sympathy or in resonance with the fundamental note. This is part of understanding music. But this isn't, music therapy. It's just, it's sound therapy, and it's understanding whether you're using the voice or initially starting with an instrument that you can hear the tone with, whatever you have to do. I'm going to just demonstrate a fundamental note. So if I did a single note and I went, ah, that's a single note coming through my mouth. If I did the same note through my nose, it would be, so it's a little more muffled because my mouth is closed and the sound is limited to the nostrils coming through. So it's not as loud as the it's when we hum, it's a similar sound to humming. When the mouth is closed and the sound comes through the nose, we call it humming. But in any event, what I'm just trying to demonstrate is I'm going to create an overtone for you by creating a fundamental note with my nose, and then I'm going to add a second note with my mouth, which is the first overtone or harmonic, so that you understand what harmonics and overtones are. They're synonymous. An overtone or harmonic is basically the same thing. It's used in different contexts in music. But for the purpose of this example, I'm going to start with that note through my nose, and then I'm going to add a second note. I'll use my fingers to just guide you a little bit. I used to demonstrate this live, and sometimes I found people didn't understand what I was talking about. I was demonstrating harmonics and overtones, but they didn't have a reference point to compare it to, or they didn't know what they were hearing. So I learned myself over the years, you know, that to demonstrate separately a single tone and an overtone. And then maybe we'll even do more tones than two, if you like. But right now I'm going to hold two fingers up that indicate when I have two tones going, if I can get it in the camera properly. Things are like backwards. It's like I'm looking in a mirror. So, but anyway, so I'm going to start with one tone, and then I'm going to expand to two tones. If I can get the second finger in the picture. Anyway, you're best to keep it kind of in front of me. Anyway, okay, so one tone and then going into two tones sounds like this. And notice when you listen to this, to get the most out of it, instead of just listening with your left brain, we stand apart from the experience. If we listen from just with the ears, the left brain, I want to encourage you to listen with all of your awareness so that you can kind of participate in the experience, and then you can feel the sound when that second note or overtone kicks in. You can feel a little slight boost of energy. Particularly if you're sensitive to sound, it's pretty easy to feel it, but some people aren't so sensitive to sound. It takes a little practice to sensitize themselves. So listen to the vowel that I demonstrate, and then I'm going to add, you know, and close your eyes and just tune into the sound. And, you know, if you don't think I'm doing the sound vocal, you can open your eyes to check me out and keep me honest here, but I'm just doing the sounds vocally. Okay, so it starts with a single tone as I go. That's through my nose. Now I'm going to add the second tone, which is the overtone. It's like. So that's all overtoning is. The single note is toning, and then when you do two tones, it's referred to as overtoning. Anything over a single fundamental tone is referred to vocally as overtoning. And so before I close, since I've gone this long and I've gone over time already, I guess it won't hurt to give you the benefit of 3 or 4 tones simultaneously, which don't get intimidated by it and say, oh, I can't do that. I teach about 15 to 20 exercises on harmonics and overtones alone on Sunday morning of the weekend intensive workshop. And it's usually everybody's favorite part of the workshop because they start out not even knowing what an overtone is, let alone how to create it. And by midday on Sunday, they're toning harmonics and overtones, and they're very excited about being able to hear it and being able to do it. So I'm going to demonstrate that in closing. So all I'm going to ask you to do is, again, listen not just with your ears. I mean, you can if you just want to listen with your ears, but you'll kind of be locked into your left brain, and in your brain, mind is ticking off judgments and analytics and all this stuff while you're listening. You're not like a part of the experience. But if you want to be an integral part of the experience and perhaps even experience a healing in this now moment, I would suggest closing your eyes and breathing deeply and diaphragmatically, and listen with what I call inner listening, with your whole body. Listen with your skin. Listen with your gut. And I say, listen to your gut. Listen to with your stomach or your gut. Listen with your feelings, with your intuition, with your emotions, with your with everything you've got. You know, use all your ammunition and listen that way. Don't just limit yourself to the ear. Listen consciously. That's what I call inner listening. And I'm just going to do this for maybe less than a minute because we have to cut this short here in a minute. So I'm going to create these harmonics and overtones. See what you hear. See how many sounds you can hear. Are you only hearing 1 or 2, or can you hear 3 or 4? Because I'm going to be running through a lot of different harmonic exercises to bring out a lot of overtones and harmonics. So I'm going to begin, as I usually do, with a bit of a invocation. It's always helpful to connect to spirit for protection, because when you go within, just like there's spirit and love and all sorts of wonderful things within, there's also negative stuff, just like in this outer world and the inside, there's negative stuff. So I always suggest people do an invocation, some kind of short prayer invocation. You're welcome to use the one in my book, Sound Medicine, if you like it, or you can just write and create your own. But I'm going to do the one that I'm familiar with, that I've been doing for years as an invocation. So I invite you to close your eyes and join me in this process. It's only going to take a minute, so just keep your mind clear for just 60 seconds or so, however long this takes. You don't have to think about anything else. Just be present in the now moment and open your intention to let healing come in. Know that you deserve healing, that you deserve to release or heal anything in this now moment with the regenerative sound I'm going to generate right at this moment. And so I'm going to start off with 1 or 2 tones and then go into more. But first, I want to invite you to join me in spirit, at least, for this invocation. I invoke and evoke the divine loving consciousness of the infinite spirit within, Father, Mother, God, infinite intelligence, divine love and wisdom, as a clear and open channel with sound, light, and love as my guides. I ask that the sound of light now guide and direct us. I ask that the sound of light uplift us. So may the sound of light uplift us. May the light of sound guide and direct us. And now may the love of spirit embrace and protect us. And finally, may the sound of the soul resonate through us in this now moment for the healing and harmony of all. Okay, what did you notice? Did you feel anything? If you did, where did you feel it? Did you feel it in your hands or feet or in your tummy or your back or your head? Everybody experiences this differently. Some people don't, they're not real in touch with their body and they don't know what they're feeling or if they're feeling anything. So there's no right or wrong response or whatever, but The more vibrationally attuned you become and more in touch with your sound and your body, the deeper you'll experience sound, and the more you'll be able to use it to release blocked energy and to heal yourself, especially once you learn the overtones and harmonics from my book, Sound Medicine, or my recordings of the Secrets to Healing with Sound and Toning, or from the workshop this weekend. So if you're in the LA area, one last little mention or plug here. Join us tomorrow, Thursday, the 20th of February at 7 p.m. for the LA Sound Healing Open House, 7 p.m. And in addition to that, or if you're not available for that, the weekend intensive is Saturday and Sunday from 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. both days, and you'll learn an awful lot and transform your world and your life with all these principles and exercises. So I invite you to join us, invite you to participate in your own sound awareness and explore sound, play with it, have fun with it, and you'll eventually come to the healing and regenerative part of it. That's very exciting and transcendent. So thanks for listening, tuning in. I appreciate your attention, and those of you that are listening. And I'm going to take leave of your senses. So once again, I'm Wayne Perry, certified sound therapist, coming at you from West Hollywood, California, and I hope we can sound touch again soon. So blessings of resonance to you.